This artifact was commissioned for Bailey Gauthier by her husband Rick, so that Bailey could hear her parents, Rick and Laurie Holder, recount how they met and the enduring love they share. I'm Mike from Artifact, and in this conversation, I spoke with Rick and Laurie about their magical journey, which was love at first sight and still is.
Hey, my name is Rick.
My name is Laurie, or also known as Mimi.
And I'm Bumpa.
And today we're going to talk about
the way we met and probably the way we fell in love.
Well, let's start there. Rick, can you start us with telling us about the day you met Laurie?
Well, the day I met Laurie, I was told I was interviewing a tennis pro for work at my business called Hampshire Hills.
And what's Hampshire Hills?
Hampshire Hills is a large sporting club with all kinds of activities, fitness, swimming pools, tennis courts, you name it, it exists at Hampshire Hills.
So you're the owner of Hampshire Hills. So the day that you met Laurie, you were expecting to interview a potential tennis pro. And was Laurie the person being interviewed for the job?
She was the person.
And he was a general manager at that point.
Oh my. Okay. This sounds like a fascinating job interview.
Yeah.
So, tell me about the interview, please. What was it like?
The interview was extraordinary in that we both had parallel lives before we came to Hampshire Hills. We digressed away from the interview and talked about everything from music to child rearing to particularly working with children, because we both have early childhood education backgrounds.
So how long was the interview scheduled to be, and how long did it last?
It was scheduled for about a half hour, and it lasted 2 hours.
Laurie, tell me about how the conversation evolved, where it started as a job interview and then went in a different direction.
Yeah, it was just so easy, and we had so many interests in common, and times we'd been in the same place at the same time, but didn't know each other, and we just became like best friends during that interview. we started playing tennis together and hanging out, and it was kind of complicated because I was coming with 4 young children under the age of 6, and that added lots of interesting dynamics. But he actually became really good friends with the kids as well, and maybe even faster than even with me. And they developed a relationship, and then our friendship just kept growing. And I wasn't at that point interested in dating because I had more, with 4 kids and a job to think about and getting a place to live and the rest of it. It was more just having a great friend. And then
so we became friends, and the kids liked me a lot. I liked the kids a lot. They were really, really fun, interesting. And kids like me a lot because they overlook my faults. They don't even know about my faults. So
what faults? You don't have any faults.
I think you said that you became best friends in the interview. So a big question is, Laurie, did you get the job?
Well, it's funny. I did get the job. He was he was hesitating for whatever reasons. I think he thought that it was a lot. And I have a lot of, I come on with a lot of energy. So I think he was just debating
not ready for that much
impact the staff. But I know I was ultimately hired and had a great career teaching at the club. And then we bought the club in 92. So then, that changed a lot. But it was, I had come to Hampshire Hills because I wanted a place to bring my kids and raise the children. And I knew this club was where I wanted to be. So it became our home, our second home, and beginning of a wonderful life together and a love story.
Did the love story start in the interview, or were you friends and colleagues first and it grew into a romantic relationship?
Yeah, I would say it
Yeah.
definitely grew as we got to know each other more and more. And we really didn't start dating until we spent a lot of time talking about the things we love to do and the things we believe in.
I think everyone around us knew that we were going to ultimately get married right away, but we just didn't have that on our radar. We really were just concentrating on the friendship. And then there was this balmy day in November, and we were out back playing basketball and running around, and we sat down on a bench, and he basically said, if we're going to get married, we probably should start dating. And I was like, whoa, okay. And that was the beginning of it. It was November. We were married that next July, and we got married on the top of Mount Cadillac at Bar Harbor in Acadia National Park with all of our children and family. And that was the beginning of our life together.
So what were you feeling and what were people seeing in the two of you together that it was obvious or clear that you were someday going to be together, getting married, and should probably start dating?
I think they saw each of us as strong individuals with a lot of energy and the same kinds of interests. And we probably, if we looked at each other, they probably saw the sparks. So, when you're involved that way, you don't necessarily see the sparks as much as you acknowledge the interests and the fun that you might be having together with the next little thing you do together, whether it's playing a tennis match or going for a walk or thinking about going to a Broadway musical. All of those things kind of overcome any other awareness that people might be noticing that you are attracted to one another. And it simply didn't matter whether they noticed or not. We were.
It was all about us at that point.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, we were together all of the time. And it was probably very obvious, not to us, but to everyone else, I'm sure. It was very obvious.
So what were those months like after that conversation on the bench?
I invited her to dinner at a very nice restaurant in Boston. And after that, we decided to continue dating. And we had a number of dates after that. And then as Christmas was approaching, we decided to live together. And we had a wonderful, wonderful Christmas together. And we took the kids on this most unbelievable outing to cut down a Christmas tree and have it as our first Christmas tree together. And we took the kids on a toboggan, trudging off through the woods, found the perfect Christmas tree, dragged it to our vehicle, loaded it on, and off we went to a wonderful apple orchard where they were giving hay rides on a Santa sleigh wagon. And we were the last ones to board it. It was our own ride. And
Santa came with us.
Santa was on there with us. And it was so magical. And we actually have the videos of it. It was the most incredible bonding opportunity. And that was followed up by Christmas together and kind of a double Christmas because we already had things under the Christmas tree, but I had surreptitiously set up an inflatable castle in the house that nobody knew about. And I had picked out special gifts for each of the kids inside that inflatable castle. When I unveiled it, opened the door and played The Castle on a Cloud from Les Mis, the kids went crazy.
Our life together was magical. It was like this all of the time. And there were surprises and wonderful trips, and just his thoughtfulness was endless. And it really was a magical time for the children and for me and for us.
The bonding opportunities were amazing, and they all worked out. I think, better than we thought they would.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The kids are so excited that he was coming to stay. And, that's making that decision, obviously, we knew that would be married, because I wouldn't have brought the kids into it without knowing that. So then it was just getting used to living together and bonding with the kids, which of course he did so quickly. And then they knew we were going to get married.
Laurie, what was it about Rick that made your kids feel so strongly about him so quickly?
Well, he's just an amazing man, and he relates with children so well. He's kind and intelligent and listens and focuses on them, and
Witty.
and funny, very funny, and extremely handsome. He's just got away with people and children.
We've all heard, or most of us have heard the phrase, it was love at first sight. Did you believe in that phrase before you met? And how did you feel about that phrase after that?
I always believed that could happen. It didn't happen to me up until when I met him. And then I truly believed it. My mom and dad had that happen to them, and they would always talk about it and how they met each other and, were in love instantly. So I thought, wow, that could happen to somebody. And I, of course, watch Hallmark movies and whatever and see it, happen on the screen. But then meeting him, I mean, my heart just leapt. I mean, it was so obvious, and the kids loved him immediately. And it was just as though someone had put this person on earth just for me.
And for you, Rick, what was your understanding of that phrase? It was love at first sight.
I probably am more romantic than most guys. So certainly I was intrigued by Laurie. I also was very immersed in running a rather diverse and intricate and complicated business. And so I try to keep my guard up from the standpoint of being overwhelmed by somebody immediately. I'm a pretty cautious person, but I will tell you that I was extraordinarily intrigued. This is a combination of feelings. I think I was more guarded perhaps than Laurie. But on the other hand, yes, she was an amazing person and beautiful, not to discount her looks, but she was absolutely stunning looking person. So then I had to even be more guarded.
And we have a large staff. I mean, I was one of about 250 people. So I think, and everyone was watching. So that would make someone maybe pause for a bit.
So you had this wonderful, memorable Christmas with you and the kids.
The best.
After that, I think you said earlier that you ultimately got married in July. Tell me about the decision to get married. How did it come up? Who brought it up first?
I did.
What did you say?
I said, if we're going to get married, we should probably start dating.
That's right.
Okay, so you were serious that day on the.
Yeah.
I was serious. I would never say something like that unless I wasn't really pretty much dedicated to moving forward with my life with her. And at the same time, it wasn't an appropriate time to get down on one knee and ask her to marry me, but I did subsequently when we went to Broadway and saw
Miss Saigon.
Miss Saigon, and we had also, before Miss Saigon, we saw Phantom of the Opera. We had fabulous seats and two fabulous shows. On Broadway, it's something so magical because the performance is second to none. And it was...
Weren't you going to ask me during the play?
I was going to ask her to marry me.
But I was crying too much.
Miss Saigon, and...
but I was sobbing.
and if she was sobbing and I asked it and she couldn't recompose herself, that would be a rejection. So I had to make sure that the timing was right. And we had a wonderful after show dinner on the Marriott Marquis restaurant. And our table rotates around, and I hoped that she was spinning with love.
And there was a piano playing in the background, and it was just romantic. I wasn't thinking anything other than just thinking about the plays we just saw and on our.
So I got down on
Oh,
one
sorry.
knee and topped the question, overlooking Broadway.
Yes.
And it was a magical moment. And she said yes.
Go figure. Our life together has been magical ever since. I mean, every day I feel that. So, and we're truly blessed and definitely found the perfect person. So
I can tell y'all like each other. I think you're going to make it.
we're gonna.
Yeah, we're sticking this out.
Yeah. We've been through it all.
Laurie, what do you remember about that moment where Rick proposed?
It just seemed perfect. He always, when he's going to do something, he does it in such a way that it's perfect. So I was just ecstatic and happy and excited and just thinking about our life and how fortunate we are and how much we have and how much love we have and how just truly blessed I was and how happy the kids were going to be. And it was just, again, I use the word magical all the time, but it truly is magical living with him.
What do you remember most about the big day when you finally came together to be married?
Well, I know that getting up at 3:00 in the morning when you've been up till 11 o'clock the night before means you're a little bit tired, but excited. And our job was to get to the top of Mount Cadillac to watch the sunrise, because that's where the first rays of light hit the top of Cadillac, the first part of the United States that the sun hits every day.
Oh, wow.
And so we wanted to see that. And then we knew that we would be going down and getting ready for a noon wedding in the same spot at the top of Mount Cadillac.
Laurie, what are your memories of the ascent and descent and at the top of Mount Cadillac?
It was just stunning. And I grew up climbing mountains. I climbed all the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. There are 48 of them. So I spent my life climbing. So it was just nice to be up in this beautiful mountain with overlooking Bar Harbor and the ocean and the islands and the boats coming in. And it was just a perfect spot. And I knew it would be a great place for our wedding. And people can drive up Mount Cadillac so everyone could get there. And we sort of staged it so it'd be ready for our wedding. And the only thing I was worried about is that I knew his vows would be better than mine. So I was most worried about that. He's prolific with his writing. So
we actually chose Mount Cadillac because it's very close to my family farm, which is in West Franklin, Maine. And that family farm has been in our family since 1850. So,
and that's where the reception was.
Right.
Okay.
65 acres of blueberry barrens and spruce trees and
A little pond
and a farm. And it was a magical place as well. When I was a child, I would go there and visit for times in the summer. And my grandmother would drive me to the top of Mount Cadillac to enjoy the view. And back then it was a dirt road to the top. I had very fond memories of being up there, and as did other members of my family. And Laurie's mom and dad had also spent time in the area of Bar Harbor and gone to the top of Mount Cadillac. So it was a perfect choice for us. So we go back there every year and enjoy the views and the memories in the same spot.
And the kids go back too. And we have a family burial off to the left of the farm, which is eventually where we'll end up. But it's also nice to go back and visit all the relatives and think about times together and people that have passed and just reconnect with them, which is lovely.
It sounds like a very special place.
It is.
So you get married, and what comes next? You know, find a place to live together and blend the family. What were those early days of coming together like?
That was exciting too.
We started looking for a home, and we had to decide where we would live. And we decided we wanted some place close enough to Hampshire Hills so we didn't have a long commute. And we wanted a place that had great schools.
Good schools, yeah.
And so we started looking, and Amherst was the town that we felt had the best schools.
Yes.
So we started looking in for property in Amherst, and one Sunday, I saw a house for sale on Thornton Ferry Road, number 1, and we drove out from Nashua to see this house. And as we pulled into the driveway, we realized that the house was far too small for 4 children and 2 adults, because it probably had 2 bedrooms and not much else going for it. So as we backed out of the driveway, not having toured the house, I decided to go east on the road that we had never been on before, instead of going back the way we came. A nice Sunday drive. And as we drove away from that house, we went over a little brook, around a corner, and voila, there was a sign by the driveway of the next house on the opposite side of the road that said "For sale by owner." And so I said, wow, this is crazy. Let's go up and look. And Laurie said, no, it's Sunday. We can't bother these people on Sunday. And I said, we're going.
Well, I thought we should call.
And we drove up. We drove up, and at the top of the hill, there was the house. And I stopped, and Laurie said, okay, we'll call them. I said, no, I'll knock on the door. She said, no, you can't knock on the door.
Well,
it's Sunday.
And also, I didn't want to go in a house that I didn't know if we could afford or not, because we were simultaneously trying to buy the club. And so I was just, if I went in and I loved it and then we couldn't buy it, I'd be sad. So
I knocked on the door.
He knocked on the door.
And the people was happy to see us. And we and 4 urchins following us toward their home. And right away we fell in love with it. And that was love at first sight. And it was 4+ acres near downtown Amherst, New Hampshire, surrounded by conservation land with 727 feet on the water, which is a beautiful brook that runs along our boundary.
It's the prettiest.
And rolling fields.
It's the prettiest spot in Amherst for sure.
And virtually no other houses in sight except the Foxbrook Barn, which is a bed and breakfast across the river. So we realized we had to get this place. And so what happened is, as I was arranging for financing, we found ourselves breaking away from work at Hampshire Hills and running off to this property with a little box lunch. And we would sit there in the corner of the property down by the road and just
watching the house.
dream about owning this place where we could bring up the kids.
Oh.
And within 3 weeks, we had purchased the house, and there we would live happily ever after.
That's beautiful. You've had this magical relationship. Every relationship has its ups and downs, or say regrets. Any regrets for either of you?
The only regret that I have is that I had never had the opportunity to meet Laurie's dad. He had passed away earlier in his life. And I just have this feeling that he and I would have been best friends. Mm-hmm. And we would have enjoyed each other's company endlessly. And I do miss that, and I do dream about it.
Why do you think you would have been best friends?
His personality was similar to mine. His love of life was infectious. He loved to laugh, and I loved to tell jokes and make corny puns that I know would have laughed at. And his way of making people feel good is something that I admire beyond all other things, nearly. Just an amazing person.
He was.
And Laurie, for you, anything that you wish had turned out differently, or you would have been possible?
Well, I feel the same way. I wish my dad died so young. I was only 18. He was 48. And, but he lived a full life. And I do think they would have been best of friends. And we talk about him with the children who never got to meet him. Everyone talks about him as though he's present, which is just quite a legacy to leave. And I think that the strength that I, saw in him, I see in Rick, and just being a wonderful father and all that. But as far as regrets for meeting Rick and marrying Rick, I wouldn't change a day. I wouldn't zig or zag a different way. I would keep it exactly the same. And I wish we had met earlier. That's my regret.
You both use the word magical. What advice would you have to the people in your lives, the kids, about maintaining that magic in their relationships?
I think that never overlooking an opportunity to embrace the magic of life. And most of that deals with people. And most of that deals with being kind to people and looking for an opportunity to share something positive with another person. If you can live your life that way, and I know my mom particularly ascribed to that
Yes.
belief, if you can live your life that way, you will be blessed for every day that you live.
And we've always told the kids, we use the word believe. I know it got used a lot more recently, but back when we said it to the kids to always believe, it was just to believe in something to give them strength and just make their hearts grow bigger and just always be kind. And I think they have had a wonderful childhood, which gives them a wonderful foundation to give to their children and to their relationships. So, we're just very thankful that they're all healthy and well and happy, and we're all very close. And again, we're truly blessed.